welcome back to my channel. My name is Brianna and if you're new here, welcome. And today I am filming my birth vlog. So I'm going to insert some photos and some clips and tell you kind of a story time of what my birth was like and all the little things that people don't actually know. And also I'm also going to insert a clip of my actual birth and the ending and me hideously doing that horrible cry and then cry, but you know, when you're in all those feelings and you give birth to your firstborn child and just giving birth in general to your own child, every emotion and feeling and everything is just, your love is undescribable. So when you give birth, I still rewatch this birth vlog and this birth video and I still bawl my eyes out. So I think it's quite normal if you're a mum, or even if you're not a mum and you watch this and you cry. I'm pretty sure it's just a normal thing that you do. So a little story of how the start of my birth started, how we got into the birth suite, what happened, what my birth was like, and all the little things. So I'm going to start off by saying that, so first off, I went to my last day at clinic. Now at clinic it was, you know, like the normal checkups. They also do a little talking, so they check your blood pressure, sometimes they check your urine, they'll monitor baby, have a feel, do the heart rate, check baby's heart rate, and then they will have like a class. And this time it was just a girls class. They do the little checkup and then they have a talk about like this exact class that I had, which was my last clinic one, was about epidurals and drugs and stuff that you can take during labour to calm down the contractions or to help you give birth and not be so painful. But yeah, so what happened was that the lady, so it was a student nurse, and she was checking my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was super high. And then she was a bit like, okay, I'll try again, like, because she thought that the thing was broken or whatever. So she tried again, and then it was still high, and then she tried a couple more times and the same result kept coming up. So she ended up telling my midwife Lisa, who is just drop dead amazing and I love her so much, and she'll be my next midwife 100%. But she told Lisa, and then Lisa said, alright, you come with me, we'll go into the room. It's like a little doctor's type room and stuff. She had a feel of my belly, took my blood pressure again. She said, so your blood pressure is quite high, how are you feeling? And then I said, because I was really super unwell, so I had a head cold. I was just probably the sickest sick that I have ever been in my whole entire life. It was just, I got hammered with it pretty much. Couldn't breathe, blocked nose, runny nose, headache, I had a cough, a sore throat, I had the works. Anyway, so from then my mum came with me as well, so this was her one chance to come with me, which is kind of a coincidence because normally she would have been at work, but she had her day off on that day of my last clinic day. And then so she came with me to the clinic, and me and my mum were sitting in this doctor's room with my midwife, and my midwife was like, alright, so we're going to have to take you to the hospital, and what's going to happen is we're going to check, we'll do a few observations. So we're going to check your urine, your blood pressure, and we'll probably have to do a spec. But I was used to specs because I was a lot of in and out of hospital pretty much all the time, because I had like premature contractions or really intense Braxton Hicks all the time. So I was a lot of going in thinking that I was in preterm labour, then having to go out and then go back in and go back out. So I had a lot of specs. So she said that, and then she said to me and my mum, she said, so I'm going to meet you guys at the hospital, give me about an hour, you guys go have something to eat, and then we'll meet you there. So we head off, me and my mum, and they said that and also my midwife said that we might have to induce you if you end up having preeclampsia. So, and by the way, I was swollen as, I was humongous, had big hands, swollen feet, my face was huge, my nose was like triple the size that it is now, and so I was just humongous. And you'll see in the video when I insert like my little birth vlogs and stuff like that, you'll see all that kind of stuff and how big I was. And I had acne and I had PUPS, which is a red rash. I'll insert a photo of my back. I don't think I've got one of my face, but if I can find one of my face, then I'll insert a photo too. It's pretty but it was really bad. I have a lot of scarring because of that as well, which is depressing. But hopefully eventually it'll go away. It's 100 times better anyway. So from then, they took me to the hospital. We walked into the hospital. They put me in a room. They did the urine test, the blood test, my blood pressure test, and that was still very high. And they did what else did they do? They did the urine test. They tested that, and then they did a spec. So I was 1 centimeter dilated at that point already, but from doing the spec. And then she takes the whole spec, everything out. She leaves the room to check my blood pressure and my urine test to see how that all is, and if there's any protein in my urine, or if my blood pressure was still high. So my blood pressure had gone down, which was good, which would normally be good because I was 37 weeks pregnant at this stage too. But they were like, alright, so you're probably going to be fine, you're not going to have pre-eclampsia. So me and my mum were like, oh, because I was so excited to finally have my baby, and I was thinking, yes, I brought my last packet of wet wipes, this is it, I'm going to have my daughter. And then they say, nah, sorry, you're going to have to go home, we're just going to do your last few observations, but you're going to go home. So that's what they were saying to me. And then after about maybe 20 minutes or half an hour, my student midwife, Megan, who was amazing, who actually gave birth to my daughter, well, helped me give birth to my daughter, she come in and goes, did you hear the good news? I was like, no. And then she goes, oh, well, you're having your daughter, you got pre-eclampsia. And I was like, oh my gosh. So at the same time I was like, oh, as in I've got pre-eclampsia, but I was so excited to finally have my daughter as well. But yeah, so that happened, and then the whole process started. So we had nurses and doctors coming in. They were doing specs on me. They did the sweepy thing, which is just disgusting, and there's another vomit thing. And then she said, the actual nurse who did the sweep to me, she said, if you don't end up getting induced anyway, by the time maybe night time, you'll probably end up going into labour anyway, because I did a really intense sweep. So I was in so much pain, by the way, when they were doing that sweep. It was just gross. But it did work, because in the end they ended up putting this balloon, which is supposed to open up my cervix, which would make my waters break and stuff like that. But what happened was, I still had the balloon in me. I was about, I think I could feel it dropping, so I would say I was maybe 2 or 1 centimeter still at that stage, and I was already getting consistent contractions. So it was around 4:30ish that all of that happened. So they put in the balloon, which starts the induction of my labour, but that didn't really work for me, and my body ended up going into labour anyway. So a little bit fast forward from then, nothing was really happening. The balloon still hadn't fallen out, so I still wasn't 3 centimeters dilated. And then they put the 2 belts around my belly, and they just kept monitoring baby's heart rate and my contractions, and they were slowly getting stronger and more painful, and they were getting closer together. So then what happened was, my body, because I was really unwell, my fever just boosted through the door. My body actually went into shock. So when my body went into shock, I was shaking uncontrollably. So my whole body was, I had the shakes, I could barely talk because I was going oh, like that, and everything was just shaking. I couldn't control anything at all. My mum, because what happened to my mum when she was in labour with me, her body went into shock as well, so she got rushed to the hospital because she was trying to have a home birth with me, but because she went into shock and I was backwards, oh, what was that? I forgot what it's called, but Winter Rose was actually backwards in my belly too, so she was oh my gosh, I'll add the word down here, whatever it is, when her spine was against my spine, when her spine is supposed to be against my belly. But anyway, so we were kind of in the same boat. So my mum started getting worried, and she went to one of the nurses in the reception area and said, I think my daughter's gone into shock, can you come check up on her, see if she's alright. So they ended up calling my midwife in, and who's Lisa, and she came in and she checked over me. She said, look, your fever's gone up, your body's gone into shock, so we're going to have to rush you down to the birth suite. So then they rushed me down to birth suite, chucked me in a wheelchair, rolled me around the whole hospital into the birth suite, and which was awesome about the suite that I got. It was the exact same suite that my auntie gave birth to my cousin, so that was pretty awesome. But yeah, so they put me into the birth suite. It's just a humongous room. It was huge, and I was stuck on this bed. My body was still shaking. My fever had spiked. My baby girl's heart rate was boosting through the roof, so like that's when everyone started to freak out a bit. Also, because I was so sick, everyone thought I had that flu bug, that really bad flu, and so they were all suited up in like duck masks pretty much. They had the big masks, they had the full set of gear, like suited up so that they couldn't, that they wouldn't get disease by my disease that wasn't even a disease. So from then they just kept monitoring me. They had the 2 straps around my belly checking my contractions and baby's heart rate. They started to get a little more worried because my fever wasn't going down, contractions were getting worse, my body was still shaking, and the only thing that really brought my fever down and stopped me from shaking was they inserted a drip of Panadol in me. So every time they put that through my body, I calmed down, but it only lasted for a certain amount of time, and then I was back to shaking uncontrollably and getting the sweats, and oh, it was just so bad. At the same time I was getting really intense contractions, so I was like, oh my god, and I was just crying my eyes out, and it just progressed and got worse and worse and worse. The pain got more intense, the contractions got closer together. The weird thing about my contractions though is I would have one really massive, like intensely painful one, and then the second one would be intensely painful but not as intensely painful as the first one. So I was just like bawling my eyes out pretty much. It was really super duper hard. And then I ended up saying, can I have the epidural? I can't take it anymore. I was crying, my mum was crying, it was just a mess. And then they said, yep, look, we're going to talk to the doctor, we're going to take your temperature again, your blood pressure again, we'll record them down on a paper, we'll get the anesthesiologist, is that what they're called? Can't remember the name of what they're called, but the people that do the epidurals and the super intense drugging, I guess you could say that is what it's called. But yeah, so they got the guy in and he checked up on me. They weren't actually going to give me an epidural due to my fever, because if your fever is over 37, then you can't be given the epidural. So your fever has to be lower than 37, which was frightening, because if they hadn't have given me the epidural, I think I would have actually died. But yeah, anyway, so from then, my fever calmed down, so he ended up giving me the epidural. I was sitting on this bed with a pillow in front of me, leaned over, and at the same time I was getting contractions and you can't move, and it was like excruciating pain because you're stuck like this, and when you get contractions you just kind of want to lean back and kind of relax, but it's really hard to relax when you have to bend over your belly and hold a pillow and you're getting this intense strong contraction. But yeah, so that happened. I got the epidural. I was squeezing the student midwife's hand so tight, like I thought I could have broken her hand. That's how painful the contractions were. But yeah, so I was holding her hand as he was doing the epidural for me, and then eventually I got the epidural, and then the pain slowly went away, which was good. I also had a button that I could press whenever I felt like I could start feeling the contractions again, which helped heaps because they just kept coming back. And because when I got the epidural, it only did half my body, so it did, I think, so I was from about waist down, I was numb, but I could still feel a slight contraction, and I could still feel like my area kind of place, so I could still feel that. So I wasn't fully numb. I was numb, but I wasn't fully numb, which in some sort of way helped me when it came to giving birth to my daughter. So my fevers kept getting worse. I wasn't really progressing, like I wasn't really dilating fast, so I was still stuck on the bed. I was still getting fevers. My baby girl's heart rate just kept spiking up, so they kept me on the medicine, kept me on the drugs, but they started getting worried, so they were mentioning having a C-section. But I was determined not to have a C-section because I was so, you know, I guess I was afraid to have a C-section, and I kind of wanted to have a natural birth for the sake of how young I am and how I don't want to have a C-section next time as well. I want to be able to have a natural birth. So I was pretty determined. My midwife asked if I would want a C-section, and I said no, that's not really what I want. I want to do it natural. And then so they were considering giving me a C-section, but that's not what I wanted. So my midwife just kept trying to calm my fever and the shakes and calm baby down. So before they did the epidural, I forgot to mention that they did break my waters, so that's when the contractions started getting worse, and that's why I needed the epidural. So yeah, I probably needed the epidural way before that, but it was just increasing massively around, like, you know, before I got the epidural. And then, so they mentioned C-sectioning. It wasn't what I wanted, so I just was determined to have my daughter naturally, and I ended up doing that anyway. So once I was given the epidural, I could finally get some sort of rest, so I took as much of the time that I could to just relax, get some sleep, well, some sort of sleep, and just lay there and just stay calm. I had to stay calm in order to keep my baby girl calm, so I just had to kind of relax, soak it all in, and just sit there and try to get some sleep. I was exhausted. I hadn't eaten and since 4:30 that the day before, so I was just pretty much wasted. I was tired, had medicine coming out my ears and eyes. It was a lot. So I had about 10 AM that day, which is the 27th of April, because I started to get induced on the 26th around 4:30, and then now it was 10 AM in the morning the next day, so the 27th of April. At about 10 AM they were preparing me to give birth to my daughter, so they were setting up the room, they were setting up the, what is it, where you put your feet up on those things that are like this and you chuck your feet on top. They were setting up that. I was getting ready to have my daughter. They did they checked to see how many centimeters dilated I was. I was about 8 centimeters dilated at that point, I'm pretty sure. And then so I just laid there, stayed relaxed. At that point the epidural was kind of wearing off, so I had a little more feeling, and which benefited in the end. There was about 10 people. There was I had nurses, I had doctors, I had heaps of people in the room, like there was millions, and they were all suited up and I was all ready to go. So I started feeling her kind of move down. I could feel a lot of pressure down in like my pelvic area. It kind of felt like I needed to poop, which is the normal thing. But I kept saying to my mum, dad and partner, I was like, I need to poop. It feels like I need to poop. And then my midwife came and she double checked to make sure that the baby wasn't coming out, and I was still a little bit off, so they gave me about, I think it was about 2 hours. I had about 12:11, I'm pretty sure. The time will be up in the footage that I show you after this. It was about 12:11, and they were like, alright, so you're going to have to start preparing a push. So I did a couple test runs, which I'll add in right now.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Perfect. A longer push. Good job. Okay. Again? Okay, yeah. Long, hard push. Good job. Keep it going. Keep going. Keep going. Perfect. Good girl, good girl. Good girl. Push, 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 push. That's it. Yeah, good.
Alright, so once I did those test runs, they felt like I wasn't pushing right. So when you push, you kind of got to push like you're gonna poop, but you got to push down, like you can't push up. I was pushing in the wrong direction. But so they were like, we might have to get the suction cup, which is a cup that sits on your baby head, and I'm pretty sure they just pull a lever and it kind of sucks the head out. But when they said that, the lady said it's will most likely give your baby some sort of damage on her head, or could affect her in some kind of way. And then a switch just kind of clicked in me, and I was like, I'm not going to let this happen. That's my baby. Like, I can't let anyone hurt her or touch her. She's my everything. She's my world. You know, I've got to protect her. So, and at that same point, they wanted me to try push again. So I pushed, and I knew that I was doing it right because I could feel it down low. And then I just gave it my all, like my absolute all, in order, because I just did not want her to have that suction cup on her head. I was so worried, so I tried my hardest, and then I ended up pushing her out, and eventually she came out, and I was just in hysterical crying, bawling my eyes out. I was so, like, it was unbelievable. It was 12:18 on the 27th of April, and I had my beautiful baby girl, who is my absolute world, and I could not take back that moment ever again. Like, it's one of the most memorable and where I'm most proud of myself, that moment. So I gave birth to my daughter, and she was in the most perfect condition. They laid her straight on my chest. I was bawling my eyes out crying. They took her off me to clean her up a bit, weigh her. She needed a drip in her hand, so they ended up putting a needle in her hand. The lady who did it, she missed twice. So once they missed the vein twice in a baby's hand, they have to pass it on to a new nurse. So she had to wait till a new nurse came in order to do the drip. But my baby, she didn't even cry when that was happening. You know, they put sugar water in her mouth, and she just loved it. And then straight after that, they laid her back on my chest. She straight away went for the boob, and I fed her, and it was just like, I think at that moment I was just like, whoa, like, I have my baby. I'm gonna cry. I have my baby in my arms, and she's just my everything. Oh my gosh. And I just would not take this moment back for the world. It was just an unbelievable moment.
Breather, just wait till your next contraction. You've done really, really well. You're going to take some photos? Yeah.
Wow, so you aren't doing so water.
If you want, you can have a feel of baby's head, because baby's head's sort of just sitting there and not going up. That's right here. That's right here. Here we go. Long, hard. Keep going. Good job. A little breath and right down. Right down. Beard down. Beard down. Right down. Bring to the beard. Little breath. Long, long push. That's okay. Just catch your breath for the next one.
The least one.
You really need.
Yeah, her heart rate's fine. Right. Big push into your bottom. Into your bum.
Don't eat.
Perfect. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Keep that going, hold that one. Perfect. Lovely. Don't let baby up when you take your breath. Hold in there, and then take a breath. Take a breath, push again. Push. Good job, good job. Perfect. Again.
Come on, Nance. Come on, Nance.
Good job. Good job. Keep your breath.
Do it, Nance.
Well
Oh,
done.
good job.
Well
Good
done.
job.
Right there, baby. She's right
Have a
there.
breath. Action's still there.
Breathing down a bit.
Hard down.
Get to the top of that page. Okay, now big push. That's it. Good.
Here you go, Nance.
Good job. Yes. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going.
Pushing it.
Beautiful. Perfect. Do you want to give me a little breath? And again. And again.
Yeah, just sort of. Yeah, lovely.
Here we go, Nance.
Another big one again.
Beautiful. Go on, go on, go on.
Well done. All right, stop.
Oh, baby, you nearly got her. You nearly got her. Turn in the center.
Oh, thank you. I know there's a lot of us, but you just focus on your little baby, okay? Because you're doing fantastic.
Go on, go on, go on.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Keep on going, she's coming up, baby. Come
Beautiful.
on.
All right. Another one?
Take a little breath. And go.
Pushing it.
Right down into your bottom. Right down here. Good job.
Push,
Keep going.
Keep pushing.
Keep on
Yes,
going.
keep going.
And another one.
Keep going, honey.
Keep on going. Good job.
Keep going.
Good job.
Listen out, Brianna. Come on. Keep it going. Keep it going.
Keep it going.
Come on. Come on, honey.
Keep on going. Good job, good job, good job.
Nice and steady.
It's at
No,
Nance.
no, 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 that's all right.
Keep going. Keep going.
It's at Nance. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Keep on pushing.
Is it gone? Okay. She won't come back now. She's at the point of no return now.
Little breath. Little breath.
She's at the point of no return now.
Good job.
Amazing. Good job. It's come back though. Coming down.
Here we go, Nance.
Okay, giving it.
Yeah.
Right now. Big breath.
Alright.
Stop,
So
stop,
stop.
stop. Blow now. Blow. Blow.
Blow. Blow
Big
out.
blows,
Little
big blows.
candles. Little candles.
That's it. Go on.
Yeah.
Give us another push.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and she's rotated. Yeah.
No, she hasn't.
Good girl.
Go on the first push.
Push
Push,
her out.
push, push.
That's it, honey. Push. Here she comes. Here she comes.
Yay! There we go.
There she goes, down.
7, 6, oh, 18.
Alright,
Can we get Gaston as well?
1, 12, 18.
Dad, do you want to cut the cord? Yeah? Can I hold on a sec? Just wait.
It's alright. I'm going to go behind here.
You go, Fano.
You can do it here. Just here. Perfect. Good job.